Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Monmouth County. My name is Kat Grauso. My pronouns are she and hers. And I serve, along with Irene Passmore, as the co-chair of the Caring Committee. And speaking of the Caring Committee, this is the time of year when each of you will be receiving contact in the way of a phone call or perhaps a text or maybe in person. It's just our annual check-in to remind you all that we're here, and if you have any needs that we can help you meet, we're glad to do that. Speaking of needs that perhaps someone here can meet, and it's kind of a sign of the season, Barbara and Paul's car battery died. And they are here and could really use a ride home. They live in Middletown. So if there is anyone who can help, just see Paul, there you go. See? Wonderful. So, whoever you are, whomever you love, however you have arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. Our mission is to create community, transform ourselves, and transform the world. This morning, we are happy to welcome our guest minister, the Reverend Sasha Ostrom. Sasha started her education and received her Master's of Divinity from Starr King School in 2014. She began her ministry serving as the assistant minister of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh and is currently serving as the settled minister in Morristown, New Jersey. When she's not ministering, she enjoys figure skating, role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, spending her time with her partner and their two feline companions, as well as reading, watching, and writing science fiction and fantasy. So we welcome you, Sasha. I draw your attention to the backside of your orders of service for announcements and service information for next week. For those on the live stream and the video viewers, the order of service link is available to you in the YouTube service description box. After the service, refreshments will be served in the community room, and people of all ages are welcome to visit with one another there. If you are new to us, please do check out our website, uucmc.org, where you can sign up to receive all of the latest news of the congregation by email. We look forward to getting to know you better. Please put your devices on silent as we enter into worship together. Welcome again to this place of love and hope.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Sasha Ostrom. I'm the minister of the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, but I also had the pleasure of being here with you a little under 2 years ago. I was out here pre-candidating. I couldn't say that, of course, at the time, but a lot of people knew what time of the year it was and knew that Morristown was in search, so it's really lovely to be out here with you again. Now, as we settle in for the hour together, let's go ahead and pause and center our minds and our hearts around this month's theme in your congregation and mine of nurturing gratitude. And we begin with words by the Reverend Gretchen Haley that may resonate with anybody perhaps who is feeling a little rushed this morning. Maybe you were running a little late. Maybe there's a lot of worries on your mind. So this is an opportunity for us to imagine that maybe even God goes through something like this and be able to kind of settle down together and just be together and enter into worship. So today, God is running late, trying to find their seat, scanning the room for someone they know or someone they don't. God's feeling evangelical, but not in a judgy way, mysterious, but not manipulative. God can't stop thinking about the James Webb telescope and the possibility that time is not linear, which God might have guessed from the never-ending urgency of some upcoming election or the likelihood that sometime next week Christmas decorations will show up in a grocery store. God is tired of grief and white supremacy and the warming of the oceans, not to mention they usually come to the later service. And it's hot, and why hasn't the climate-friendly air conditioning been installed yet, God wonders. And of course, we're all like, no kidding, God, can't you do something about that? But God's hearing aids have run out of batteries, and they haven't had time to order more. The last emergency room visit maxed their credit cards, and their partner's been working DoorDash for some extra cash. But it's just not enough, and really God just wants to be present. Stop worrying about everything. Sing, breathe, laugh. And then from the back, a black woman wearing a hat and a small black child are seated in a church pew. We got you, God, they say. We'll settle in and we'll be present and we will sing. We will tell stories and breathe deep. We will remember ourselves and offer whole galaxies of gratitude for all of this beauty, this still blooming flowers and apple trees, fall leaves and cooling days, for protest letters and entire villages of people saying, "You are safe here." God, your creation is not yet done creating you. So come and let us worship together. The flaming chalice is the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the liberal religious tradition to which your congregation and mine are a part. Our chalice lighting words today are by Katie Savani Gefland. We light our chalice as a symbol of gratitude as we celebrate the abundance of our lives together. In sanctuaries like this, we harvest bushels of strength from one another and offer our crop with the hands of compassion and generosity. In the authentic and gentle manner of our connections, we cultivate a simple sweetness to brighten our spirits. May we be grateful for the ways we nourish and uplift one another, for it is in the sharing of this hallowed time together that we are sustained. Now please rise as you are able for our opening hymn. Our opening hymn today is number 128, For All That Is Our Life.
For all that is our love, praising our thanks and dread. And make our own day love.
This morning is called The Leaky Bucket, and it's a retelling of a traditional story of unknown origin. I found it in 100 Wisdom Stories from Around the World, edited by Margaret Silf, and I've adapted a little bit for our purposes today. So there once was a beautiful garden, and the gardener was very proud of his garden, and he cared for it with great tenderness. And every day he would make the journey to his little garden shed at the far end of the garden, and he would fill up his buckets with clear, sparkling water from the nearby stream. And then he would walk along the little pathway to where the flower beds were, carrying water for the flowers. Now, to water his flowers, he used 2 buckets, which he kept in the garden shed. One was a shiny new bucket, recently bought from the garden center, and the other was an old bucket. It was made of wood that had been worn down over time. And the gardener would fill up the 2 buckets every morning, and he would carry them side by side to the flower beds, one in each hand. Now, the shiny new bucket was very proud of itself. It could be relied upon to carry the full load of water right up to the flower beds without spilling a single drop. But the old worn bucket felt ashamed in comparison. It knew that it had holes in it. And every morning it was so sad to see that by the time the gardener reached the flower beds, much of its water had already spilled out along the path and was wasted. Now, sometimes the 2 buckets would talk to one another as the gardener carried them along the path to the flower beds, like buckets sometimes do. "See how efficient I am," the shiny bucket would boast. "How good the gardener has me to make sure that the flowers are watered every single day. I don't know why he still bothers with you. You are a waste of space." And all that the old worn bucket could say in response was, "I know I'm not of much use, but I can only do my best. I'm happy that the gardener still finds a little bit of use in me, at least." Now, one day the gardener overheard this conversation going on, and when he reached the flower beds, he watered the flowers as usual, using the full bucket of water from the shiny bucket and the half bucket of water that was still left in the older leaky bucket. And then he picked up both buckets, now empty, and he said to them, "Thank you, both of you. You have done your day's work very well. Now I'm going to carry you back to the shed, but as we go back to the shed, I want you to look carefully at the pathway." And so the 2 buckets did as the gardener asked them, and they noticed along the way, on the path on one side, the side where the gardener had carried the shiny new bucket, there was just bare earth. But on the other side, the side where the gardener had carried the leaky old bucket, there was a row of fresh young green shoots, which in another few weeks would be a joyous row of wild flowers leading all the way to the garden. Now, this month, your congregation and my congregation, we are exploring the spiritual theme of gratitude, or really even the spiritual practice of gratitude, of giving thanks. Now, it is like when the gardener, thanked both buckets. So we have this special thing that can happen with gratitude when we allow it into our lives. Sometimes when we're going through our lives, we find ourselves feeling maybe like the old leaky bucket. Maybe we sometimes are feeling like we are not enough. Maybe we are feeling like life itself is not enough, or the world is not enough. And maybe sometimes we even start thinking something like, because I'm not feeling like I'm enough, maybe what I need to do is go out and buy some things. Maybe I need to go to to that garden center and buy myself a shiny new handle or some wood to patch up those holes. But gratitude has this amazing way, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the service, so this amazing way of interrupting those kinds of thoughts, because gratitude reminds us sometimes to pause and take stock of what we really have already. And sometimes other people's gratitude can also help us to do that. So remember the moment where the gardener said to both of the buckets, "Thank you both for what you have done." And that was the moment that there was able to then be a movement toward a shift of perspective. So if you take nothing away from this story other than this, I want you to remember that, if there are ever times in your life where you are feeling like you are not enough, or times in your life where you are feeling like the world is not enough, to pause, just let yourself open up to gratitude and think for a moment about, if there were a gardener in my life who was able to see all of the beautiful things that I'm able to create, all the beautiful things that I'm able to do in the world, and was able to share some of that perspective with me, maybe what would that gardener say to me about what I am able to do, and what kind of a blessing I am to the world. And that kind of gratitude can help us sometimes to feel like we are enough and to feel like the world in which we are a part is enough as well. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I believe we are now going to go ahead and sing our younger people to their family ministry small groups.
Every week in this congregation, we are provided with an opportunity to practice generosity. This is your invitation to contribute to the well-being of our congregation and to our social justice partners through the good works of organizations which receive half of the monies collected each month. Our Share the Plate recipient for November is Clean Water Action New Jersey, working to protect communities all across New Jersey from the negative impacts caused by all aspects of the freight and goods movement system, from port to warehouse to delivery, including air and water quality, noise pollution, and degradations of quality of life. While all of us are affected, these negative consequences are most strongly felt in those communities already environmentally stressed. The ongoing proliferation of warehouses in New Jersey is exacerbating these issues. For those of you present here in the meeting house, the plates will be passed by the ushers. Online instructions are located in the service description box. You may join this time of generosity via text, or send your offering by mail, or charge your contribution online with a memo designating an amount to Clean Water Action, New Jersey. Please give generously.
Our reading this morning is a poem by the Reverend Chris Jimerson titled, "Who Am I Not to Be Blessed?" In moonlit shadows at the edge of night-darkened oak trees, I see it. Across sunny pathways and the buzzing of insects among the flowering forest greenery, I hear it. From the touch of one's loved, the embraces of those gone before me, I feel it. In the poems I love dearly, the songs that speak to my heart, the sculpture that captures my imagination, the discoveries still to be made, I sense it. It is in the fire of distant suns, the cool drip of waters, the slight chill in the breeze. Laughter of children, no matter what their age, old and young, grown and still small. It is in the breath of life, the stardust of souls, the magic of remembrance. Who am I not to surrender to it in gratitude? Who am I not to be blessed? Several years ago, when I was still in school preparing to become a minister, my seminary hosted an absolutely wonderful workshop. It was with environmental activist and spiritual teacher Joanna Macy. Raise your hand if maybe you are familiar with Joanna Macy. Lots of people. A true wise woman. And it took us through many grief and gratitude exercises, including a meditation that I'd like to share with you now that maybe some of you are familiar with because of her work. So if you would like, please go ahead and close your eyes real quick and let yourself get comfortable in your seat as you listen. This is a guided meditation that you can also find in Joanna Macy's book, Coming Back to Life. By the power of our imagination, let's move forward through time, 30 years. And now we've arrived. It's November 9th, 2055. And you find yourself in one of your favorite spots. It hasn't changed much, nor have you, essentially. Some of us are pretty long in the tooth by now, but we're still alive. Don't worry too much about figuring out how the world has changed. Just know that major crises that threatened life on Earth have been averted. The weapons have been dismantled, as have the technologies and institutions that polluted and decimated life. Those destructive patterns were so interlocked that the great turning to a sustainable society in the early years of the century happened faster than anyone expected. By now, that transition seems so logical and inevitable that you take it for granted. Now, as you sit relaxing in this familiar spot, you see approaching you a child of about 8 or 9. And she is eager and timid, for she has heard in songs and stories what you and your friends did back then to save the world from disaster. And she comes to stand before you, and you listen to the questions that she wants to ask you. And the first question is this: is it true what they say about life back then? Were there really millions of sick and hungry people? And bombs that could blow up whole cities? Could that be so? Now breathe deeply and imagine your answer to her. And now she asks you a second question. What was it like for you to live in a world like that? Weren't you sad and scared all the time? And hear your own reply. The child listens carefully. There's one more thing she wants to ask. Where did you and your friends find the strength to do what you did? How did you keep on going? And hear within yourself the answer now. The child is ready now to go back to her friends, but as she starts to run off, she turns back and she looks at you and she says, "Thank you." And you watch her go, and now it is time to return back to 2025. We go back now to that period in which there was still so much to be done, though the great turning had already begun. It may have been even further along than we thought. And so let us now breathe deeply as time flows backwards until we return again to the here and now, 2025. So one echo of the future follows us home as we return to our own time, and that is the words, "Thank you." And you may open your eyes if you had them closed. So that word echoes back to us, that word, "thank you." So I wonder what you felt, if anything stirred up in you when the little girl in the meditation said those words to you, those words of gratitude. You know, when you heard that thank you, did you feel joy for the beautiful vision of a better world? Did you maybe feel hope for the possibility that you might be able to play a role in shaping the healing of our world? Or perhaps you felt some pain for the gap between the world as it now is and the world, that beautiful world in which the girl now lives in the future. Or maybe you felt some skepticism about whether we'd ever be able to get there. Maybe yearning or fear. You know, what did you feel? And if you're willing to, I encourage you to actually go ahead and, using one word, maybe name some of those things you felt now. Guilt. Relief, yeah. Hope. Some skepticism. Mm-hmm. Responsibility. Gratitude, yeah. So a lot of feelings stir up in us when we hear gratitude in response to it in times like that. So gratitude, as we hear from some of the feelings that people are expressing right now, it can be hard sometimes. You know, it can be hard to accept another person's gratitude for us when we maybe feel utterly inadequate to the task that meeting the challenges before us requires. It can be hard for us to feel grateful when our own lives are hard, when something maybe seems to be missing, like if we lost a loved one, it can be hard to feel gratitude in times like that. And it can be hard to be grateful when we are aware, very, very aware of all of the ways that our world is hurting. Now, this month, many of us will be pausing on Thanksgiving Day to say thank you. But gratitude might not come easily this year, even as we are surrounded by the blessings of loving family and great food and a recent election that gives us cause for a little bit of a breath of relief. So perhaps, like me, you are worried that this Thanksgiving about fascism. Maybe you're worried about climate change. Maybe you're worried about whether our homeless neighbors will be able to stay warm this upcoming winter. You know, things like this can make it hard sometimes for us to feel gratitude. They can even make us feel bitter. Now, I don't know what helps you, but I do hope there are things that help you. But what helps me sometimes when I find myself maybe sinking toward despair is to remember meditations like the one from Joanna Macy. You know, that vision of a more peaceful, compassionate, and sustainable world is something that really grips my heart. And this idea that there are those of us who are alive today who might be able to actually shape that world, to bring it into being together, is something that really fires me up. You know, what if we really could make the choices that will give our descendants reasons to thank us rather than to condemn us? You know, what if we really do find the strength collectively to confront our challenges and to make our lives and world better? You know, the meditation's child and her world may never be born. We are, I think many of us are aware, at a tipping point in our history right now. Recent events keep proving over and over again that we have the ability to, and the willingness as a species, to create a far less sustainable, less welcoming, and less peaceful world than we live in today. But despite the lack of certainty that the child in her world will ever come into being, there is still so much power in her gratitude. Her words of thanks have the power to comfort us with hope and to activate us for change and to help us to imagine something greater than we are experiencing right now. And our own gratitude can help us to actually bring the world that she lives in a little bit closer to our own world. Gratitude is powerful. It's not just a feeling, even a virtue or a practice. It is also something, titled the sermon today, gratitude is something that is subversive. Gratitude can counter some of the very forces that are currently threatening life on our planet. And gratitude is also a remedy to some of the things in our lives that harm us physically, mentally, as well as spiritually. I recently saw a cartoon, kind of floats around every few years, a cartoon that illustrates the forces that are threatening life. And in this cartoon, there's a smiling teacher, and the teacher says, "Children, today we are going to learn code. It's an important skill for a prosperous future." And then a concerned student raises her hand and she replies, "Teacher, after that, could we learn how to survive in a civilization threatened by ecosystem collapse, rising sea levels and the resulting geopolitical turmoil, armed conflict, and the increasing polarization of ideological orientations, and humanity's seemingly insatiable appetite for stuff?" So I firmly believe that gratitude can actually help us to survive those things, but only if we use gratitude properly. If we use gratitude as a force to help subvert consumerism and other forces that dominate our society and devastate our lives and our world. There's also a poisonous form of gratitude that is the exact opposite of what we need, and that we are sometimes in our society seduced into swallowing. Toxic gratitude mislabels demands for basic rights in a better world as whining, as entitlement, as handouts, wishful thinking, pipe dreams, things like that. And it also cruelly tells struggling people to shut up and count their blessings. So we force feed people this kind of toxic form of gratitude when we tell workers who really do need better jobs in order to be able to feed their families that they should be grateful for the unsustainable jobs that they currently have. You should be just happy to have a job. Other people don't have jobs. We force people toxic gratitude when we tell them that they should be glad that companies are giving them opportunities to work, even if those companies are causing harm in their own lives or in our world. And we force feed people toxic gratitude when we tell them to stop complaining if their work isn't enough to pay the bills, that they should just, get over it, maybe get a better job or something like that. But that isn't gratitude, but a stifling of very valid concerns. But there is a different kind of gratitude, and it is the kind of gratitude that Joanna Macy talks about when she refers to gratitude as something revolutionary, liberating, and subversive. Gratitude subverts the destructive messages in our society. Society is constantly telling us that we have little to no worth unless we are productive, and productive in very specific kinds of ways, productive in offering the kinds of things that our society can attach monetary value to. Our society is constantly telling us that we have no worth unless we are overworking, that success requires us to overwork, that sleep is for the lazy, and that those who are not successful in those particular ways are lazy or maybe stupid or unmotivated or something like that. But gratitude tells us that every single human being, every last one of us, is a beautiful blessing already exactly as we are. We are each a precious and cherished gift to be held in care, not because of our productive capacity, but for our inherent worth and dignity. And gratitude also reminds us to honor others as well as ourselves, for we all bring to this world and one another so many blessings simply by existing. Now, society tells us that success not only requires, constantly working to keep producing more and more of those things that we can attach monetary value to, but that we must also acquire more and more in order to prove to others how successful we are. But gratitude is something that can help interrupt that message. Gratitude reminds us of the things that we should be truly grateful for, not the conspicuous wealth in our lives, not luxuries that we don't need, luxuries that so often in their own way harm our planet and our lives, but things that we really do need to survive and to thrive. Our gratitude reminds us that true success is not a nice car and a nice house, but the ability to really notice the blessings of life and to use all of those blessings to transform this life we all share into a greater blessing for everyone who shares it together. We are successful to the degree to which gratitude reminds us that we are already immeasurably rich, rich beyond compare, and the ways that it also helps us to pass that wealth on. Gratitude also helps us to really love the world around us, not as a vague, abstract concept, but in rich details. We become more and more aware of all these nuances, beautiful nuances of the world around us, all of its very particular blessings. And that love can in turn guide us to protect and nurture the things that we are grateful for. We are successful when we become so incredibly aware of our blessings that we use our blessings to create a more loving, just, and sustainable world for everybody to share together, for all creatures to share together. It can be hard, though, sometimes for us to notice all of these blessings and all their nuances in our lives, let alone to use them. And that is because our society is so good at distracting us. It tells us that we should want conspicuous wealth and instant gratification, that we should always be on the move, trying to acquire more, never really pausing to notice what we already have. And it tells us that in order to get conspicuous consumption, all those things that we can show off how successful we are, all of those things that help us feel like we are enough, that in order to get those things, we must work harder and faster and longer and smarter. And worse, it tells us that if we don't have enough, then we perhaps are not enough. That, something is missing, something deep within us is missing that we can only get by buying more stuff. And again, consumerism is deeply destructive to our planet as well as to our society. In order to break free of that, manufactured desire, you may have heard that term before, we need to have time in our space, in our lives, to be able to just breathe, time and space to notice, to really sit with what we have, explore it, savor it, appreciate it. We each and those of us around us already have so many gifts of great worth. We should have opportunities to be able to savor those gifts and use them rather than, constantly seeking to, find ways to treat ourselves as though we are projects in need of constant work. Gratitude can help us to strive to be better, though, but it does so by building up a sense of self-trust and self-appreciation. And so we will sometimes go, these are my strengths, these are the blessings I have, and I want to nurture these, rather than it coming at us from an angle of feeling like we are not enough, that we are insufficient or inadequate in some way. And finally, society tells us that human exploitation and environmental devastation are acceptable costs to our collective pursuit of ever more money and stuff. But gratitude has this way of subverting that, because it reminds us that our fellow human beings and the earth are already blessings that should be protected, have already given so incredibly much for us, for which we ought to be thankful for, have given us water and food, love, community, support through tough times, and wisdom. and that therefore these things should be protected and nurtured, not exploited and destroyed. And gratitude reminds us that appreciating earth and our fellow beings means, again, nurturing them, protecting them, caring for them, respecting them. So there are so many gifts not of our making that are enriching our lives right now. These gifts can be a source of strength in helping to create a better world. And we have the ability to freely choose to take these gifts in hand. So may we use them to be a blessing, not a curse to this world. And may we use them as well with gratitude to be a blessing for which future generations will say to us, thank you. Amen. Blessed be. May it be so. Now we're going to move together into a time of prayer and meditation. And so in order to prepare our hearts, we are going to sing hymn number 126, Come the Font of Every Blessing, and you may remain seated for this. You know, sometimes we come into sacred communities like this with a lot on our hearts. You know, perhaps you lost a loved one this week, or someone you know is sick or hurt. And maybe they are, extra close to your heart today. Maybe you are celebrating a recent recovery from an injury or illness or procedure, and you are feeling thankful for having passed through that hard time. Or maybe you have a special joy in your life right now for which you are feeling especially grateful this morning. So we are going to enter now into a quiet moment for all the prayers and meditations that are stirring in our hearts today and that we are holding in this sacred place. So go ahead and close your eyes for a second time this morning. Let yourself really get comfy in your chair. Just settle into your chair. Take a few moments to breathe, just letting yourself feel that air moving in and out of your chest. You know, sometimes the spirit of life and love is known as breath, so feel the spirit of life and love just moving in and out of you. Maybe let yourself hear the breaths of the people around you, this community that is holding you. Feel the spirit of life and love holding all of us together in this still moment together. Let's go ahead now and take 3 deep belly breaths together, and then we'll enter into a moment of silence. May all of our joys and sorrows know the kindness that is possible within this circle and beyond. Amen. Now let's join together in singing number 1009, Meditation on Breathing. Please rise now and embody your spirit.
For this one, as you can see, there are the 3 lines, so we'll do what I've usually done in the past and have done at Morristown. Since it's only 3, it'll be 4-month segments, so if your birthday is between January and April, you sing the first line, and then May to August, you start with the second line, and September to December, you start with the third, and then just cycle through, bottom up like a scroll. You'll go sing through all of them. It's been cool meeting all the different UU pastors throughout New Jersey, but Sasha it was a reunion because I know Sasha, so it was very cool to know for our time together at Muff. And so I can prove for a fact, as you probably noticed already, she has a fantastic voice, a wonderful singing voice, so I won't be leading so much singing. So if you do get lost, then your birthday will be Sasha's birthday. Just follow her, okay? Yeah. And then we'll just on loop when we can fade it out. When I breathe out and when I breathe in, I will breathe out love. When I breathe out and I will breathe out, I will breathe out love. When I breathe out and I breathe out, I will breathe out love. When I breathe out, I will breathe out love. When I breathe out, breathe out love. When I breathe out, then breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe in love. When I breathe out, I'm breathing. And when I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
It's time now for us to bring our time of worship to a close. And as we go out into our daily lives, I leave you with the words of the Reverend Dr. Charles A. Howe. May we go forth from this place thankful for the life that sustains and renews us, and open to the grace that surrounds and surprises us. May we go forth from this place with openness and with thanksgiving. Amen. Blessed be, and go out in peace to bless this world.
Thank you.